Let me tell you something important. Wisdom isn't a function of how loud you speak or how much you know. It's a function of how much you've suffered and how honestly you've looked into the abyss and walked out with something worth telling others. When we speak of advice from elders, we are not talking about cliché slogans or cute anecdotes. We're talking about distilled truth filtered through decades of trial, error, heartbreak, perseverance, and the slow grind of reality. These are the people who didn't just read about life. They lived it. And the question is, are you willing to listen? Because if you really do, you might just see everything differently. Responsibility is not just a moral ideal. It's the cornerstone of a meaningful life. You can't have meaning without bearing some kind of burden. And the truth is, people know this deep down. They might not want to admit it because responsibility is heavy. It demands discipline, sacrifice, and the willingness to confront your own inadequacy. But without it, life becomes hollow. Elders who have lived long enough to see both triumph and regret will tell you this plainly. The moments of deepest satisfaction come not from what was easy or pleasurable, but from what was earned through duty, effort, and the deliberate act of stepping up when it was hard. In our culture today, there's an unhealthy obsession with rights and a strange aversion to responsibility. People are quick to ask what they're owed, what they're entitled to, what others should do for them, but they rarely ask what they ought to do. The problem with this mindset is that it creates a vacuum, a sense of entitlement with no grounding. You can't have a functioning society, let alone a meaningful personal existence, without the counterbalance of responsibility. It's not enough to want a good life. You have to be willing to carry what makes life good. Think about the smallest domains of your life. If your room is a mess, if your habits are destructive, if your word means nothing, why should the world trust you with more? Why should opportunity find you? Start by mastering the basics. Clean your space. Show up on time. Do what you say you'll do. These things seem trivial, but they're not. They're the foundation. You don't get to demand a better life until you've proven you can handle the one you've already got. And this isn't about being perfect. You'll fail. Often. But that's part of the process. Responsibility isn't a one-time act. It's a posture toward life. It says, I will face the chaos. I will take what I can manage and maybe a little more. It says, I will not wait for someone else to save me. That kind of posture builds strength, and over time, it builds character. People who embrace responsibility become reliable, and reliable people earn trust, respect, and love, not through demand, but through demonstration. That's the secret. Elders understand that the weight of life isn't something to avoid. It's something to choose, because in carrying it, you become someone worth being. Pain is an unavoidable part of the human condition. No one escapes it. Whether it comes through loss, illness, betrayal, failure, or the quiet ache of disappointment, suffering will find its way into every life. This is not a pessimistic view, it's a realistic one. Elders, those who have weathered decades of hardship and kept going, don't speak about avoiding pain. They speak about what you do with it, because while pain itself may be inevitable, bitterness is a choice, and that choice matters more than people think. When you suffer, and you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to resentment, self-pity, and eventually cynicism. That's the easy path. In many ways, it doesn't ask you to rise above your suffering. It invites you to sink into it, to become defined by it, and to use it as a weapon against the world. People who take this path often feel justified in their anger, but it's a slow poison. It corrodes relationships, destroys trust, and leaves a person isolated, trapped in their own narrative of injustice. The other path is much harder, but infinitely more valuable. It requires you to face your pain honestly, without denial or theatrics, and ask, what can this teach me? That question doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives it purpose. It transforms it from something that just happened to you into something that can shape you. That's what wise people do. They don't deny their wounds, they learn from them. They allow the pain to deepen their understanding, increase their compassion, and strengthen their resolve. This isn't about romanticizing suffering. No one is suggesting that pain is good in and of itself. But what's undeniable is that it offers a chance to become more. It tests your character. And often the people who have the most to offer, those who are the most grounded, empathetic, and wise, are not the ones who've had it easy. They're the ones who suffered and refused to let it harden them. They grieved, they struggled, but they didn't quit. And most importantly, they didn't turn their pain into an excuse to be cruel or disengaged. That's the core of the lesson. Life will hurt you, sometimes deeply, but you always retain agency in how you respond. You can choose growth over bitterness. You can choose to break the cycle instead of passing it on. That choice, subtle, quiet, difficult, is what separates those who merely survive from those who truly live. Living in truth is one of the most demanding and transformative commitments a person can make. It's not simply about being honest with others, though that's a part of it. It's about aligning yourself with reality, and that means facing things as they are, not as you wish they were. It means resisting the temptation to twist the truth for comfort, convenience, or social approval. Because every time you lie, even in small ways, you distort your relationship with the world. And over time, those distortions compound until you no longer know what's real, or worse, you stop caring. Elders who've seen the consequences of lies unfold over years, sometimes decades, will tell you that living in falsehood always catches up to you. Whether it's lying to protect your image, to avoid conflict, or to manipulate outcomes, it chips away at your integrity. It weakens your character. It might work in the short term, but it never sustains. Sooner or later, the lie becomes a burden that needs more lies to support it. You build a facade, and the problem with facades is that they can't weather storms. When life gets hard, and it always does, the structure cracks and everything you built on top of it begins to collapse. What's worse is that lying isn't limited to what you say to others. The most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself. You say you're fine when you're not. You say you're doing your best when you know you've given up. You pretend you don't care when deep down you care deeply. These lies don't just confuse your path, they fragment your soul. And when you live that way long enough, you start to forget who you are entirely. But speaking the truth, or at least refusing to lie, puts you on solid ground. It's not easy. In fact, it often brings discomfort, friction, and even pain. Telling the truth might cost you relationships, opportunities, or your sense of security. But it grants you something far more valuable: clarity, peace, strength. When you tell the truth, you're no longer at war with yourself. You don't have to keep track of which version of reality you've told to whom. You can move through life with integrity, knowing that whatever you gain is real and whatever you lose wasn't built to last. Elders often look back on their lives and recognize that the moments they chose truth, even when it hurt, were the moments they became more whole. Living in truth doesn't guarantee ease, but it guarantees authenticity. And authenticity is the foundation for any life that's truly worth living. There's something deeply human about aiming at something higher than yourself. It's built into our nature to strive, to reach, to aspire toward something meaningful. The elders who have lived lives of quiet strength and resilience will tell you that the worst moments weren't always the most painful ones. They were the ones when life felt pointless. And that's the real danger. Not just suffering, but suffering without purpose. When you have nothing to aim at, nothing worth the struggle, life starts to decay from the inside out. Aiming high doesn't mean fantasizing about fame or success. It means identifying the highest possible good you can conceive of, morally, spiritually, personally, and orienting your life toward that step by step. This aim becomes your anchor when life gets hard, and it will get hard. The purpose of aiming isn't to guarantee success. It's to make your effort worthwhile even when you fall short. Because if you aim low and hit it, what have you really gained? But if you aim high and miss, you've still grown in the process. You've still stretched beyond your former self. People often underestimate the power of vision. When you don't have a vision for who you could be, you remain trapped by who you are. You settle for habits, relationships, and patterns that don't serve you. And then you wonder why life feels dull, uninspired, or frustrating. But when you set your sights on something better, when you articulate a goal that demands more from you, you activate parts of your character that otherwise lie dormant. Courage, resilience, patience, sacrifice, these qualities don't just appear on their own. They emerge when something meaningful is at stake. Elders understand this not just in theory, but in the bones of their experience. You've seen what happens when people drift through life, never reaching, never risking. And they've also seen what happens when people commit to a cause, a purpose, a principle greater than themselves. That kind of life leaves a mark. And not because it was easy, but because it was aimed true. The reality is that you won't always succeed. You'll be misunderstood, criticized, maybe even laughed at. But what's the alternative? To float through life with no direction? To trade your potential for comfort? That's not safety, that's a slow erosion of your spirit. It's far better to set your sights high and struggle upward than to coast in place and call it peace. Even when you fall short, the climb will change you. And in the end, that change might be the real reward. When everything else fades, titles, possessions, ambitions, it is love that remains. The elders who have reached the later stages of life almost always come to this same realization, often quietly, but with a certainty that cannot be shaken. They look back not at their careers, not at their accolades, not even at their regrets, with the same intensity that they remember who they loved, how they loved, and whether they truly allowed themselves to be loved in return. Love, in all its forms, is the thread that holds the human experience together. And love isn't just romance, it's the loyalty between friends who show up when it matters. It's the patient, often unglamorous care given to family members. It's the small gestures, a hand on the shoulder, a shared silence, a moment of real listening. It's found in choosing to forgive instead of holding a grudge, in choosing to stay when it would be easier to walk away, in choosing to care even when there's no reward in it. These are the things that endure. We live in a world that often values productivity over presence. It rewards achievement more than connection. But those who've lived the longest will tell you this. When you're lying in a hospital bed or watching the sunset on your final years, what you'll want around you isn't a resume or a bank statement. You'll want people. People you laughed with, cried with, fought for. People who know you. Not just your surface, but your soul. But love also requires risk. It means opening yourself up to loss, to disappointment, to vulnerability. That's why many people avoid it or settle for something easier to manage. Love asks you to give without keeping score. To be patient even when you're tired, to keep reaching out even after being hurt. It's not safe, but it's real. And everything else, status, control, admiration, is a poor substitute. Elders often speak about their relationships in terms of depth, not perfection. They talk about the people who stuck with them through mistakes and growth, not the ones who only showed up during success. They speak with pride about raising children, mending broken bonds, staying committed through decades of change. These moments, these connections are the ones they carry most clearly. Because in the end, love is what gives all the striving, all the suffering, all the ordinary days their shape and meaning. To love well is the real legacy. It's the only thing that truly transcends time. And so as we reflect on these timeless lessons forged in the quiet strength and hard-earned wisdom of those who've walked the road before us, we're faced with a simple but profound question. What kind of life are we choosing to live? Not the life that's handed to us, but the one we shape with our decisions, our character, and our courage. Take responsibility for what is within your reach. Don't shrink from the weight of life. Embrace it. Understand that pain will come, but let it shape you, not sour you. Align yourself with truth even when it's uncomfortable, because lies corrode everything from the inside out. Aim upward, towards something noble, something that demands the best of you. And above all, invest in love. Because at the end of all this, love is what stays. Love is what echoes. The wisdom of elders isn't there to limit you, it's there to lift you. It's not about living cautiously, it's about living consciously. Let their stories be the compass that helps you navigate your own path, not perfectly but purposefully. Thank you for giving your time, your attention, and your willingness to reflect. May you walk forward from this moment with clearer eyes, a stronger spine, and a more open heart. The world needs people who live this way, grounded in truth, lifted by purpose, and led by love. Thank you. Take care and go live something worth remembering.